What if I told you the downfall of great people isn't their weakness, it's their strength, abused? Yeah, Joe Rogan nailed this one, and today we're breaking down the one mistake that destroys great people, and how to avoid it like your life depends on it. Because it kinda does. You ever notice how people spend their whole lives clawing for success like it's the golden ticket? They climb, they hustle, they bleed, and the second they finally hit that mountaintop, something strange happens. They forget what the ground even feels like, and that's where the danger starts. Joe Rogan talks about this a lot. How success can be like a drug. At first, it's a high. You feel invincible. The crowd cheers, the money piles up, people look at you differently. But what starts as a celebration becomes a dependency. Suddenly, you're not chasing growth anymore. You're chasing applause. It's sneaky. Because from the outside, everyone thinks you're thriving. Man, look at them. They've got it all. But on the inside, the game has shifted. You're no longer climbing because you love the climb. You're climbing because you're terrified of slipping back down. That's not passion anymore. That's fear disguised as ambition, and fear doesn't build people. Fear breaks them. Think about it like this. You've been starving for years, right? Grinding, chasing, staying up late, sacrificing, doing whatever it takes. Then suddenly, you're sitting at a table overflowing with food. And what do? You gorge yourself, you eat until you can't move, but here's the thing. Your body wasn't built to handle that overload. What nourished you in small doses now poisons you in excess. Success works the same way. A little recognition fuels you. Too much recognition blinds you. I'll give you a picture. Imagine someone winning big, maybe a fighter, maybe an entrepreneur. In the beginning, they're sharp. They're hungry. Every setback is fuel. But the second they get comfortable, the second they start enjoying the taste of champagne every night instead of water after training, their edge dulls, their focus shifts. They're no longer asking, how do I get better? They're asking, how do I keep everyone clapping? And when you start living for the claps, you've already lost. Rogan often points out that the spotlight is addictive. And here's the catch. The spotlight doesn't just shine, it burns. It burns people who forget balance. Success tricks you into believing you don't need rest. You don't need humility. You don't need perspective. But without those things, you crumble. It's like building a skyscraper and ignoring the foundation. Looks amazing from far away, but the second the wind hits, boom, collapse, and here's where it gets really twisted. Society cheers for the collapse. Think about it. We love to see people rise, but we also love to watch them fall. The media eats it up. One bad headline, one slip, and suddenly the same crowd that applauded you yesterday is laughing today. Success without balance turns you into a puppet dancing on strings you didn't even know were tied to you. And the scariest part, you're the one who tied them. Now, let's get brutally honest. Why does this happen? Because we confuse achievement with identity. You win a title, suddenly you are that title. You make $1 million, suddenly you are that number. You get famous, suddenly you are that fame. And when all of that becomes your identity, you're not a person anymore. You're a performance. And performances are exhausting. They don't last forever. Eventually the curtain falls. This is why balance is everything. Without balance, success owns you. It drives the car, you're just a passenger. You lose the ability to step back and ask the real questions. Am I happy? Am I still learning? Am I still hungry for the right reasons? Or am I just feeding an addiction to attention? The irony is, the very thing that made you great in the first place, your passion, your curiosity, your hunger, gets replaced by the obsession to maintain the image of greatness. That's why you see so many people self-destruct right at the peak. They hit that level, and instead of asking, what's next for me, they just keep replaying the same song until it drives them insane. Imagine an athlete still reliving their big win 20 years later. Or a comedian who can't write new material because they're terrified it won't top their last special. That's not greatness, that's a cage, a golden cage, sure, but a cage all the same. So the real lesson here. Success isn't the problem, balance is. Success is the reward, balance is the responsibility. Without it, you stop living and start performing. You stop growing and start decaying. You stop being you and start being a hollow version of you that's addicted to applause. And that's the first mistake that destroys great people, chasing success without balance, drowning in champagne without realizing you're dying of thirst. Ego's a funny thing. It can be the spark that gets you out of bed at 5 in the morning, ready to take on the world. It can be the fuel that makes you believe, yeah, I can do this. I belong here. Without ego, a lot of greatness wouldn't even exist. You need that voice in your head telling you that you're capable of more than anyone else thinks you are. But here's where the twist comes in. What starts as rocket fuel can turn into wildfire. The same ego that built you can burn everything down when it grows too big to control. Joe Rogan's seen it play out in so many people's lives. Fighters who stop training as hard because they think they're unbeatable. Comedians who bomb on stage because they thought they were too good to prepare. Entrepreneurs who lose millions because they believed they were smarter than the market. The pattern is always the same. Ego starts out as an ally, then mutates into an enemy. At first, it whispers, "Keep going, you can do this." Later, it screams, "You're the best. You don't need anyone. You don't need to listen." That's when the fall begins. The wild part is that ego doesn't announce itself. It doesn't walk in the room waving red flags. It slides in quietly. It feels good. It feels right. You tell yourself, "I'm confident." And confidence is powerful, but ego is like confidence's evil twin. Confidence pushes you forward, ego pushes everyone else away. Confidence says, "I'm ready to learn more." Ego says, "I already know it all." See the difference. One keeps you moving, the other makes you stuck. Picture carrying around an invisible backpack. Every compliment, every win, every headline. Your ego tosses another rock inside. At first, it feels like proof of your progress. You walk taller, you feel stronger. But the heavier that backpack gets, the more it drags you down, and the craziest part, most people won't take it off because they're scared of losing the weight that makes them look impressive. They'd rather break their backs than admit they don't need all those rocks. That's why so many great people crash when ego takes the wheel. They stop listening to feedback because feedback feels like an attack. They stop surrounding themselves with people who challenge them, because challenge feels like disrespect. They start building circles of yes men who nod at everything they say, and let me tell you, nothing kills greatness faster than being surrounded by people too scared to tell you the truth. Think about the legends who lasted. The athletes, the artists, the thinkers who stayed sharp for decades. What do they all have in common? They never let ego close the door on learning. They kept showing up like students, even when they were masters. They kept asking questions, kept doubting themselves just enough to stay hungry. That humility, that's the antidote to ego. Without it, your own pride becomes your downfall. Rogan's pointed out that the fight game exposes ego faster than anything. Step into the ring thinking you're untouchable and you're about to meet the canvas face first. Life works the same way. The moment you believe you're too good to fail, life shows you how wrong you are. And the fall is brutal because ego doesn't just bruise you. It humiliates you. It makes you think you're a king, then rips the crown off in front of everybody. And here's what makes ego so dangerous. It blinds you. You can't see the cracks forming in your own foundation because you're too busy staring at your reflection on the surface. You can't hear the warning signs because your ego's turned up the volume on its own voice. By the time you realize what's happening, it's usually too late. That's why you hear people say things like, "I never saw it coming." Of course they didn't. Ego doesn't let you see. The truth is, ego isn't going anywhere. You can't just delete it from your system, but you can tame it. You can use it as fuel without letting it take over the engine. The key is awareness. The moment you catch yourself thinking, "I don't need to prepare, I've got this," that's the alarm bell. The moment you stop asking questions because you think you already know, that's the warning sign. Pay attention or pay the price. Because at the end of the day, ego doesn't care how great you were yesterday. It only cares about control today. And if you hand it the wheel, it won't just take you off track, it'll drive you straight off the cliff. That's the second mistake that destroys great people, letting their ego turn from fuel into fire. Comfort feels like the prize, doesn't it? You work your whole life grinding, clawing, hustling, all so one day you can finally relax. That's the dream we're sold. Make it, then take it easy. But here's the trap. The very thing you fought for can become the very thing that kills your edge. Joe Rogan says it all the time. Hard times build strong people, and easy times build soft ones. And the truth is, comfort doesn't show up wearing chains. It shows up wearing pajamas. It feels warm, it feels safe, it feels deserved. But it's a cage disguised as freedom. Think about the strongest version of yourself. When did you meet that person? Was it when everything was smooth? Or was it when life shoved you against a wall and you had no choice but to push back? Nobody discovers their strength sitting on a couch binge, watching success stories. Strength comes from the grind, from the struggle, from the days you didn't know if you'd make it but somehow did. That's where character is forged. Comfort erases that. It tricks you into believing the fight is over. But life never stops swinging. And if you get too cozy, you forget how to throw a punch. Rogan often brings up fighters as the perfect example. The most dangerous opponent isn't always the hungriest underdog, it's the champ who lost the hunger. The fighter who got rich, got famous, and started training in mansions instead of gyms. Suddenly, the same guy who used to run sprints in the rain is hiring someone to carry his water bottle. The same guy who used to chase survival is now chasing luxury. And when that bell rings, the hunger of the underdog slices through the comfort of the champion every time. It's not about talent anymore, it's about who's willing to bleed for it. Comfort makes people forget how to bleed, and it doesn't just happen in sports. Look at business, art, even everyday life. People hit a certain point of success, and then they start coasting. They stop experimenting, stop innovating, stop pushing the boundaries that got them noticed in the first place. They choose the easy road because they think they've earned it, and sure, maybe they have. But life doesn't care what you think you've earned. Life only cares about what you're doing now. You can't keep driving forward by staring in the rear-view mirror. Comfort is like putting the car in neutral and convincing yourself you're still moving. The real danger with comfort is how sneaky it is. Failure is obvious. You feel it, you know it, it stings. Comfort whispers in your ear. It tells you, take a break, you deserve it. Then it tells you again tomorrow. Then the next day, and before you know it, the fire you once had is a pile of cold ashes. You don't even realize you've stopped fighting. You just stop, and then one day you wake up and wonder, what happened to me? Where did the sharp version of me go? The answer is simple. Comfort happened. Now, don't get me wrong, rest matters, recovery matters, taking a moment to breathe is essential, but there's a difference between resting and retiring from your own growth. Too many people mistake one for the other. Rest is fuel, comfort is a coffin. One recharges you, the other buries you alive. That's why Rogan pushes so hard for discomfort. Ice baths, grueling workouts, constant learning. It's not about masochism, it's about survival. Discomfort keeps you sharp. It reminds your body, your mind, your spirit that the fight isn't over. And here's the crazy part. Comfort doesn't even make people happy. It just makes them numb. Think about it. The best stories you tell, the moments you brag about, the memories that make you proud, do any of them come from times you were comfortable? No. They come from times you stretched, you risked, you pushed, you suffered, and you came out stronger. That's where joy hides, not in the couch, not in the soft bed, in the climb, in the discomfort. That's why people who have everything often feel like they have nothing. Because once you've bought all the toys, taken all the vacations, tasted all the luxuries, then what? If comfort was the goal, shouldn't you feel complete? But instead, most feel restless, because deep down, humans aren't wired for permanent comfort. We're wired to grow, and growth doesn't live in ease, it lives in resistance. Just like muscles don't grow without weight, people don't grow without challenge, so the real question isn't, how comfortable can I get? The real question is, how can I keep myself just uncomfortable enough to stay alive? That's the sweet spot. That's where you keep learning, keep pushing, keep becoming. Without it, you risk fading into the soft shadows of your former self, wondering why the fire went out when you were the one who stopped feeding it. And that's the third mistake that destroys great people, letting comfort turn into a cage. The day you think you've made it is the day you start slipping. That's the silent killer. People reach a level of success, plant their flag, and say, "I'm done, I've arrived." And that's when the rot begins. Joe Rogan talks about this all the time: curiosity, growth, staying hungry. Because the truth is, there is no finish line. The second you believe the race is over, you stop running. And when you stop running, you don't just stand still. You fall behind. Curiosity is the engine of greatness. It's what keeps you moving, keeps you alive. You see it in kids all the time. They ask a million questions, poke at everything, try to figure out how the world works. That's why they grow so fast. But somewhere along the way, most people lose that spark. They trade curiosity for certainty. They stop asking questions and start giving answers. They start clinging to what they know instead of chasing what they don't. And the moment that happens, they stop evolving. Think about the legends who stayed sharp, musicians who reinvent themselves album after album, fighters who adapt their style even after years at the top. Entrepreneurs who never settle with one big win but keep building, keep experimenting. They all have the same trait. They never lost curiosity. They never stopped being students. The second you stop learning, you start dying. It's that simple. Rogan's seen this happen to people who thought success made them untouchable. They stopped training their minds, stopped reading, stopped exploring. They believed their name alone was enough to carry them. But greatness isn't a trophy you get to keep forever. It's rented, and the rent is due every single day. Pay it with curiosity or lose it. And here's what makes losing curiosity so brutal. It doesn't announce itself. You don't wake up one morning and say, "I'm done growing." No, it creeps in slowly. You start recycling the same ideas. You stop listening to new perspectives. You surround yourself with people who only tell you what you want to hear. Before you know it, you're living in a bubble, echoing your own thoughts, stale and predictable. On the outside, you might still look like a giant, but on the inside, you're shrinking. Curiosity is what keeps life exciting. Without it, even success feels empty. You've probably seen people hit their big goals, make the money, get the fame, buy the house, and then feel lost. Why? Because they stopped asking, what's next? What else is out there? What can I still discover? They thought the sum, it was the end. But here's the truth, there is no summit. You climb one mountain only to see another one in the distance. That's how life works. You're either climbing or you're decaying. And curiosity doesn't just keep you growing. It keeps you humble. When you're curious, you admit you don't know everything. You listen more, you explore, you try new things, and in that process, you discover not just new skills, but new parts of yourself. Without curiosity, you trap yourself in yesterday's version of you. You become a greatest hits album on repeat instead of creating something new. Here's the irony. People think curiosity fades as you get older, but it doesn't have to. Rogan himself is proof of that. He's constantly exploring. New workouts, new conversations, new ideas, new experiences. That's why he stays sharp. That's why he stays relevant. Curiosity is a fountain of youth. It keeps your mind alive, your spirit lit. Stop drinking from it and you dry out. The mistake so many great people make is they confuse stability with growth. They reach a point where they think, I've got enough, I've done enough, I don't need to stretch anymore. And that's when the decline begins. Because stability without curiosity isn't stability, it's stagnation. You don't notice it right away, but over time it shows. The spark in your eyes fades, the edge in your voice softens, the hunger in your actions disappears, and before long, you're just a shell of who you used to be. The truth is, life doesn't reward the ones who stand still. It rewards the ones who keep moving, keep searching, keep digging. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to be the most curious. That's what keeps the fire alive. That's what keeps greatness from crumbling into mediocrity. And that's the fourth mistake that destroys great people, losing curiosity and forgetting that growth never ends.